It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, you know our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Of course, we're here with our in-studio audience of one. He just put down that great big bag of money he had been carrying around so he could jump into the chair and join us into the program. Thanks, man, for setting that money aside so you can spend a little bit of time with us. Norm McCarter.
Thank you, Mr. Hare, and good morning, sir.
Good morning. You know I never let anything go, Willie.
Yeah, you don't.
And if you tell me something, I'll tell everybody else. And of course, Willie is our 21st century first citizen. He's the one that understands how to do all of this technology stuff that makes it possible for us to do live streaming of this program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. Also, stay tuned at 10 o'clock. We got Talia Talks, but you could call now live 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
And that's Willie H. Tell them how to spell that, Willie.
My name is spelled, well, you see my name there, Willie, but my last name is A-Y-T-C-H. Most people go itch-atch, but it's pronounced H. A-Y-T-C-H.
That's what I wanted you to do.
Yeah, you get used to it. You know, itch-atch,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to take the first part of today's program and talk about Republican tricks. I call them Republica tricks.
Republic tricks.
Yeah, you know, what's his name? What's his name? I can't think of his name.
DeSantis?
No, someone else from the African community. Oh my goodness, his name won't come to my head now. But anyway, he used to always refer to the behaviors of the politicians in the area as politricks.
Right.
Well, we're going to be talking today about Republica tricks.
Right.
So I went to an article written by Paul Waldman, actually written for MSNBC, where he talks about Republicans worked for decades to get Roe versus Wade turned over. After 49 years, they succeeded in taking away a fundamental right that women thought that they had that was locked in as a constitutionally supported right from 1973 coming forward.
Yeah.
But the Republicans, succeeded in getting enough people on the Supreme Court who were as ideologically oriented as the right wing of the Republican Party is, and they were able to get that Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade and take those rights away from women as a national right. Now, supposedly, the Supreme Court decision in the Dobbs case that overturned Roe versus Wade preserved the right for each state to make its own decision about whether or not abortion would be allowed in that state. But that turns out also to be a lie. They just said that to make it seem like it was not as bad as a decision as they had actually rendered. Because since that time, they've been going to every state and trying to get each state to overturn or to abolish the possibility of abortion in that state. And simultaneously, they're also working to have a national law passed to codify the abolishment of abortion rights entirely across the country. So everything that they've been saying about what they were doing is just untrue. It's only states' rights when they're trying to make you think that they're trying to keep power in the hands of you and keep power away from those people that are the others in the United States. That's when it's states' rights. But when it's the ability for them to have control over the government process and for them to decide who's an American, who's not an American, who has rights and who doesn't have rights, then it's not about state rights, it's federal rights, at that point. That's the stuff that we see going on right now. So the Republicans, as indicated, worked for decades to get Roe versus Wade turned over. they claimed, quoting them, the issue of abortion should be returned to the states. But what if voters in a Republican leaning state like Ohio reject the abortion, the elimination of abortion rights in their state? What happens then? In other words, what happens if the people have a different view than the politicians have in that state? Does democracy rule, or do the politicians use their control over the political process to create new rules and new laws to make it impossible for you to pass any new legislation that does not go along with what they want to see happen? Let me explain to you how this goes. Now, Ohio Republicans are trying to duck the will of the voters with some clever maneuvering. The state's voters will decide on 2 ballot initiatives in 2 separate elections. Now, they passed a law in Ohio in December of last year saying that you could not have any elections in August of a year because you had primary elections taking place around the country in September, and then you have a general election taking place in November in most years. So having elections in August would create like 3 different election cycles in the same year. Republicans say that's just terrible. That's not good democracy. So they passed a law in December of last year saying you can't do that. So the bill that I'm talking about right now that they're trying to get passed in the Ohio legislature, guess when it wants to hold the elections? Yeah, in August. They actually went to the state Supreme Court of Ohio and asked them to overturn the law that they got passed in December so they could have an election in August. Now, why would they want to have an election in August? Because people are at Disney World, they're in Orlando, they're in Rome, they're hiking, they're going to Six Flags, resorts and so on.
Yeah.
That's what people are doing during that time period. How many people you think are running around here trying to do elections, in August? So they want to do that because the only people who tend to vote in those kind of elections are the ones who are real partisan and ideologically oriented, the ones that are really the aggressive, the growlers and whatnot. They're the ones, that show up for those infrequent type periods for elections. So they did that so they could prejudice the game the way that they wanted the vote to go. So let me tell you how they're doing this. Abortion on Tuesday, abortion right advocates in Ohio gathered enough signatures to place a measure on the ballot in November's election to enshrine reproductive freedom in the state constitution. So the citizens came together and they pulled together a petition that was done there's 88 counties in Ohio. You had to get a 5% 5% of the voters in 5% of the voters in half of those counties, 44 of those 88 counties. You had to get signatures from 5% of the voters in each one of those counties in order for you to get something on the ballot. They succeeded in doing that. That was done, obeying Ohio's rules. So now they got a ballot initiative that's going to be on the November ballot when they have the general election to approve a citizen-driven referendum saying that the abortion rules that were established in 1973 under Roe versus Wade, those would be the abortion rules for the state of Ohio forever.
Okay.
So they wanted to just re-enshrine. Whatever y'all do in the other 49 states, do whatever you're going to do. But in this state, it's going to be Roe versus Wade works in Ohio. That's what they decided to do. The Republicans went crazy. Said, "What are you doing? You can't be doing that. That looks like democracy. We don't do democracy in Ohio. We do autocracy. Didn't y'all read the script? Read your newspapers." So if the referendum passes, the state would be prohibited from restricting abortion until after the point of fetal viability. That's what Roe versus Wade did. Once a baby was had gestated enough that if you took it out of the womb, it would still be viable. It would still be able to live outside of the womb. You couldn't abort that baby. But a baby that was still in the stage where it was a, sort of a fetal stage, then you couldn't, you could abort that child. Now, remember, it's not like there are people running around here trying to find kids to abort. It's people who are in usually difficult circumstances that are looking to abort their own children.
Right.
How many women do you know that would want to take something that's living inside of them that they have the most intimate relationship with you can possibly have and want to kill it? I mean,
Nobody.
when it was the morning after the night that, somebody, had the sexual act that caused a pregnancy to occur, they might be willing to do it then. But 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 weeks into a pregnancy, women are very unlikely to want to abort that child. Something has to be really insidious going on in that woman's life that would make her feel like, well, whatever's going on here, I gotta abort this child. Usually it's because their money situation is crazy. The dude they had the sexual relationship with, was crazy. They're crazy. They lost their job. Terrible things have to go on in somebody's life for them to make a decision like that. So to put pressure on people in those circumstances is to, especially to do it just for political reasons, is horrible. That you would do this as a party. But what does they say? A recent USA Suffolk University poll found the ballot measure supported by a 58% to 32% margin in Ohio. So the ballot a measure they put on the ballot for November, 58% of Ohio's voters want to see Roe versus Wade established as law in Ohio.
Okay.
So that sounds okay, right?
Sounds good.
Now, the Republicans who've gotten used to having absolute control over the legislature in Ohio considered the outcome intolerable. So they created their own ballot measure to change the state's rules on ballot measures. Now, this is because you have a state assembly in Ohio and you got a state senate in Ohio. The Republicans have like a supermajority in both the state senate and in the state assembly. And the governor of the state is Republican. So whenever the Republicans, I've said this the last few shows, whenever the Republicans have the majority of the vote in any body in the country, they will use that majority to change the rules for that body so that it makes it easier for them to keep themselves in power, makes it more difficult for you to be able to do anything to challenge anything that they want to have done. So what they're going to do, what the Republicans are doing, is putting their own ballot measure before the voters, but their ballot measure is going to go on the August ballot. The August ballot that's not supposed to exist because the law that the Republicans passed in December abolishing August elections. Well, they then put August back on the schedule and got the state Supreme Court in Ohio to allow the Republican Party to break their own law. The state Supreme Court actually approved a decision to allow Ohio to break their own law. So they put something on the ballot called Issue 1. Issue 1 would raise the threshold to pass constitutional amendments on the ballot from 50% to 60%. Now think about what this is about. Instead of saying that we object, we want to abolish abortion rights entirely in the state of Ohio and fight that battle, they said, no, what we'll do is we'll change the rules that govern the ballot that the citizens put, the referendum that the citizens put on the ballot in November. Now, if this Republican issue 1 ballot goes through, in order for you to get a referendum approved by the voters, instead of it being a 50 plus 1%, majority, you'd have to get a 60% majority. How many times can you get a 60% majority on anything in the United States? So they want to raise that threshold. And then in addition to that, you have to get the voters, you have to get a petition that signatures from 5% of the voters in every county in Ohio, all 88 counties in Ohio. Instead of 44, you got to get it done out of all 88. Now that's not the law right now. That's what the Republicans are putting before the public for the vote in August to change the rules. So this is what the Republicans do all the time. When they can't get what they want, they change the rules so that the only thing that can be voted on is what they want to vote on, not what anybody else wants to do. This is classic. Go ahead, Nora.
It's just kind of funny, but why can't the Democrats submit a rule that states the rule that they're trying to change can't be changed after it's already been set down?
Because the Democrats don't have control of the legislature. The ballot initiative in November that the citizens in Ohio put together was done by a citizen process that allows you to be able to get a bill before the public in a general election. So this is not the state assembly and the state senate voting on this. This is advocates going door to door in every county with, petitions saying that, we want Roe versus Wade to be the law in Ohio. Please sign this petition, and getting 5% of the people in each county to do that. That's what the citizens have done. The Republican legislature, they just get together. There's like 100 people in one of the bodies, and I forget what 50 people in the other body. You can get them to come together, just politicians, and they can work out a deal amongst themselves. They may only talk to 80 people, and they could get a ballot, initiative on the ballot. So that's what we're dealing with, in Ohio.
For something as important as Roe versus Wade, there should be maybe a superior ruling body that's even over. I mean, the legislature is the smallest portion.
You would think that, you would be able to go through a body like the state Supreme Court in your state. But the reality is referendums that are citizen referendums are not approved by the legislature. This is going to the public of the state as a whole in a general election with a referendum saying we as the public are putting this before everybody and asking you whether you support or don't support this thing. Whereas if you're doing it through the state legislature, it's a political process.
Right.
So if
it gets supported in the beginning, but the legislature comes together and overrules it. But
at least in Ohio and Florida, in Texas and places like that, they just changed the law. There's a citizen process that allows referendums to get on the ballot.
Let me ask you this. The process of changing the law,
right?
Then maybe that's what should be entered into the process.
Norm, that's what's being entered right now.
Okay.
The Ohio legislature, because the citizens put together this referendum that's going to be on the ballot in November.
Yes, sir.
The Republicans in the Ohio legislature didn't like that. So what they're doing is putting their own ballot initiative together.
Gotcha.
But they're going to have their ballot initiative voted on in August of this year when nobody's around.
Okay.
Willie's going to be down in Orlando, at Walt Disney's place, trying to avoid Ron DeSantis while he's down there.
No, I'll probably be Dominican Republic.
Oh, see, now he's out. He done left the country. Elvis has left the building. So I'm just trying to help us to understand this is the way the game is being played right now. And if you're not paying attention, you lose. And you lose big because you lose everything. Your rights, That's your ability for you to control yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What they've said is you don't have the right to control yourself. That's what the attack on Roe versus Wade was about.
Exactly, right.
Right? And not only do you not have the right to control yourself, men have the right to control women.
Right.
That's what they that's what they believe in, and that's what they're trying to enshrine back into the law.
Well, what they try to do is make it like it's a religious thing where, God don't want abortions and that, but God gives us one of the things everybody seems to forget. God gives us the choice. He said you can do this or you can do that. That's God, not man. Man can't tell you what to do. And you have to follow.
I'm glad you said that, because it's important for people to understand this determination about when life begins is a religious determination. Mm-hmm. It's not a factual determination. You do not know when somebody turns into a God-created human being, with a soul and so on. Yeah. You don't know that. You believe that. If you're a Christian, you believe that. If you're a Muslim, you believe that. Other faith systems don't believe that. Faith systems that you would normally think are, part of the mainstream, in America, don't believe that. Because the Constitution says that you cannot, I forget the exact verbiage, but you cannot,
force your religion or your
right. You cannot align the country. The United States cannot be made a Christian country or a Buddhist country or a Muslim country or a Baha'i country or whatever. There has to be a complete separation of state and religion in the United States. That's what the Constitution says. You can't establish, that's what I was trying to get to, you can't establish a state religion and say, this is what we believe. It's not what we believe. But if there are 331 million people in this country, let's suppose 100 million of them believe something else.
Right.
Because 2/3, believe what you believe doesn't give you the right to take away the rights of the other 100 million people in this country. That's the way the Constitution is set up. But we have a body of people, mostly right-wing Republicans, who don't believe that. They believe that, wherever we have the majority in a legislature, we can change the rules to be whatever we want the rules to be. We don't care if you think it's wrong.
Right.
You know what? But
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, now that's the democratic aspect in how you do it. But what about right and wrong? When it comes down to what's right and what's wrong, with the woman governing her own body and being able to make a choice on what she should be able to do with her body, that to me is what it really boils down to.
So this is why men should be just as animated in fighting for women's rights to control themselves as the anti-abortion people are in insisting that generally male-oriented legislatures have the right to tell women what to do with their bodies. See, at the end of the day, your body is your own.
Yes,
you
sir.
own your body.
Right.
Nobody owns your body. I know that's hard for you to understand, because we spent 250 years, in North America, having 5.5 million African people owned by other people.
And those was conservative Christians who said, "Oh, you got to serve your masters."
Yep.
Using the Bible and religion
Slaves,
once again.
Slaves obey your masters.
Right.
Right.
Using that
and so on. Right. See, so you've got this premise. Remember, you become what you hear. So if you spend 200, 300 years hearing that you have the right to own other people, then you develop this so-called democratic society called the United States of America, but you still believe in your heart, well, we've been owning people all this time. Mm-hmm. We could at least own women. How about that? Let's at least own women. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me.
Or we can at least control people what we think is right. Control them, make them do what we think is right.
So Secretary of State Frank LaRose, who was running for the state Senate in Ohio, running for the U.S. Senate in Ohio, he said at a Republican gathering last week that the measure that the Republicans are trying to put forward is 100% about keeping a radical pro-abortion amendment out of our Constitution. That's what it's all about. It's about whatever we said before about states' rights versus national rights. We didn't really mean it. We just said that because it was convenient at the time. What we really meant is the only rights you have are the rights that we say you have. And if we don't say you have those rights, you don't have them. Period. We don't care about right and wrong. Tell Norm to start talking about right and wrong. We're not doing that. We're doing power. That's what we do. We just do power.
Yeah,
Control.
right.
We want control.
Yeah.
So, lest there be any doubt, the legislature scheduled the vote on issue 1 for a special election in August, which would be assured a very low turnout. If it succeeds, the abortion amendment on the ballot in November would have to get 60% of the public to say yes to that November ballot, a referendum.
You know what, Mr. Hare, let me also add or just ask. They're looking at this particular vote in Ohio. We're looking at 3 back-to-back elections. Now, in a way, that's making you kind of take your eye off the ball because most people, they would go to one.
You'd be lucky to get them to vote for one election.
Yeah. You go to one.
Right.
You hit one election, and a lot of people feel like their civic duty is done.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But we have these three elections back to back. That to me is kind of
think of it like this: school board elections in the city of Buffalo. How many people out of the total voting age public, the registered voters in the city of Buffalo, what percentage of them actually vote in a school board race?
Man, it's a small percentage.
You're lucky if 9% of the people vote in that election.
It's a really... Man.
Yet you have a budget for the school for the school district that's twice the size of the budget of the city of Buffalo.
Yeah.
You have more power in the school district in terms of employees, in terms of the range of people and activities that you have control over, the amount of money that you get to control and spend, who gets to buy, who gets to contract.
Mr. Hare, I'm just wondering, just with what you just said, does the money have an opportunity to get spread out in a way that it benefits the people of those particular districts? And will it not only to the people in the school board, but would it be able to help the people in the community instead of just sitting there?
The answer to all of what you just said is no. That's the answer. Okay.
Okay.
The school district, its budget is focused on operating the schools. So individual schools get budgets. The people who are the principals of those schools don't have any real control over the budget that's assigned to those schools. They have very little control over the money that goes to pay for the individual schools. Those decisions are made centrally by the superintendent of the school district, the sort of city hall part of the school board.
Yeah.
Those decisions are made there. They're not made by the principals at each of the schools.
I'm just kind of wondering, here in our area, within the inner city of Buffalo, it's a very small, it would seem, a very small percentage for sports and athletics here. And then when you move outward of the city and into other states and stuff, there's a large... You know what I mean? There's opportunities for children.
If you were in Nebraska, you would see that there's humongous support for high school sports, even intramural elementary school support, sports support. In places like that.
Even after school activities.
Different districts have different priorities.
Yeah.
But my point is that you got nearly a $1 billion budget for the school board. You have a $500+ million budget for the school, the city of Buffalo as a whole. So the superintendent of schools actually is a larger job than the mayor of the city of Buffalo.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
See, so priorities are set that way, right? So you got a body of people who make up I think the 11 people that make up, or 9 people that make up the school board. That 9-person body is essentially the legislature for that school board. So when you have something that affects everybody, like people's rights to control their bodies, you have 9 people making a decision, or you have 80 people or 60 people in a state assembly, or 30 people in a state senate making decisions for everybody in that state. That's what's going on right now. Man. And what the Republicans are doing is, every time they don't get what they want, they change the rules, because they control the legislature. So that's the thing that we really got to get our arms around. If you're not paying attention in these local races for common council, races for state senate, for state assembly, county legislature.
Question, Mr. At the end of when you're voting, and it's down like on the bottom, and it has like these things stating that this is part 1 added to I agree. Is that what we're kind of talking about when they're changing the rules?
Well, no, that's the referendum process. Okay. So those are generally either citizen-driven referendums that are done the way I talked about, where you get the 5% petition signatures in each of the counties, and you get you need a 50% majority to be able to get it on the ballot.
Yes, sir.
That's for the citizen-driven stuff. The state legislature can vote to put a referendum on the ballot by getting a majority of the state senate and the state assembly to agree to that referendum and put it on the ballot. Then it can be voted on by the citizens. So what you got are the citizens taking one position and the state legislature taking a different position in opposition to what the citizens said that they wanted.
And then you're voting against part 1 and part 2.
That's not supposed to be democracy.
Yeah.
You are democratically electing your state senate and your state assembly. They should be reflecting your will.
Yeah.
So you gather petitions to reflect the will of the people in your state, and you put that referendum on the ballot. They object to your will being expressed by the citizens in your state, so they create another referendum to undo the referendum that the citizens put together. That's not democracy.
Not at all,
okay?
sir.
But that's what's going on right now. So, but thankfully, the GOP subterfuge seems to be backfiring, making the issue 1 vote a second referendum on reproductive rights. It looks like 57% of the voters in Ohio oppose the referendum being put forward by the Ohio State Senate and State Assembly, and it looks like that referendum is gonna go down. But opponents can't take issue 1's defeat for granted. Abortion may be the issue that the Republicans' agenda on their mind, the most clearly unpopular thing in a state that they control. But the lasting effect of issue 1 would be to close off one of the last means voters in Ohio have to exercise their will. The harder you make it for people to put citizen referendums on the ballot, the less democracy you have in that state. I think they got to figure out a better way to get citizens' wills, before the public anyway, and make it less difficult rather than making it more difficult. But you hear the music, that means that Willie H is beating me up because I've talked 5 minutes longer than I'm supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. 5 minutes.
Please don't go away, but we'll see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
Stay tuned, 10 a.m. Talia Talks. Check it out. We'll be interviewing people from the community. Talia Talks at 10 a.m.
Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Norm McCarter. He's our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
And of course, we're here with our engineer. He directs the program, Willie H. How you doing out there, Willie?
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. Call in live, 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
And so I wanted to just get into something a little bit. I know it's a little bit getting into the weeds, talking about the money supply. But it's important for us to understand the mechanisms of how the country works. So the economy is part of the systems of the country. How does our economy work? You've probably heard people say that the United States has what's called a consumer-driven economy. That's different than, say, the Russians in their economy. The Russians have essentially a command economy. They have industries that are owned by the state itself. That's what communist countries are about. The industries are owned by the state. And then at a state level, they decide how much productivity they want for each of those industries. We want this many suits and ties. We want this many, ovens, this many bicycles, and so on. Now, if there's not enough demand to buy all of that stuff at the level that it has been produced, you end up with a lot of waste in that kind of a society. And if there is a lot of demand and you haven't produced enough, you end up with a lot of people that got their mouths poked out because they can't get what they need. In the American model, the capitalist model, consumption drives the economy. People tell you what they want by making demands to buy. And then you're trying to make money, so you try to make whatever it is that people are trying to buy and sell it to them at a price point, probably the highest price point you can get.
Yes, sir.
You try to sell it to them, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's the model in this country. What underlies that model is the supply of money. You have to have money to be able to buy. And so our economy, basically is, or if you think about the GDP, the money supply reflects the total amount of the value of goods and services in your society. Not absolutely that way, but very close to that. So if you have more money than you have goods and services being produced in your society, then you're going to have inflation, because there's going to be too much money for the amount of goods that are available, to be purchased. Go ahead.
Quick question, Mr. Hare. Is that why the Republicans are always talking about inflation, or that we're in an inflationary period, because of the fact that unemployment is down? I mean, unemployment is way down, down to 3.5, 3.6. So there's a lot of spending, a lot of buying. And they're looking at it almost as if inflation, or utilize that, I guess, trying to say that it's inflation, even though it's not. We want unemployment to be down.
Right, and nobody really wants inflation.
Right.
Republicans whine about inflation because it's politically valuable for them to keep putting inflation in front of people as if this is the big issue, and get them all antsied up, about that. People are kind of slow. So they don't realize that if you go back 6 months for a price of gasoline is actually cheaper now than it was 6 months ago in terms of price per gallon. Mm-hmm. Now, if you do it over the last year, a year ago, gas prices were up significantly. So it looks like, inflation, We used to get gas at $2.70,
Right.
a gallon
Right.
in July of 2022, and here it is in July 2023, and it's $3.61 for a gallon. But if you went back 6 months ago, it was over $4. 6 months ago, and now it's gone back down to $3.60, per gallon. Go ahead.
Mr. Hare, I have something that kind of sticks out. This may resonate pretty good with you. Maybe 6 months ago, Willie and I discussed something with you something you didn't know about, because Willie and I are consumers that get out there. We do a lot of shopping, and we looked at the price of bread. And you didn't,
Definitely over my head, way over my head.
At the time, Willie and I both said that bread had kind of risen up to
Escalated,
close to $4 a loaf,
Right?
And you were kind of amazed with it.
And I'm still amazed.
but right now, I went shopping yesterday. My daughter, she stays with me.
Yeah.
We're looking. I think we're trending down.
And
now.
what's the price of bread now?
Yesterday, it looked almost like $3.25, $3.40.
So the price of bread has gone down by 60 or 75 cents.
It went
right?
down. It really, and it
But
amazed me. And I thought of you yesterday.
If you listen to the media, though, you would get the impression that inflation was still just jacked up.
Yes, sir.
Prices are just going up, when in fact prices are going down.
Yeah.
Right? I think we may have a caller hang on there just a second. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Did we lose that caller? Okay. Tell caller, if we lost you, please call back. It could have been my fault.
No, I don't think so. It probably could have been spam because it wasn't on long.
So in this article that I was looking at, written by Steve Goldstein, they're talking about how if you track the money supply, you get a better idea about the direction of inflation. And so what they've been finding is that the amount of money, physical money in the society that underwrites the purchases and the production of stuff in the society, that amount of money is now much smaller in relation to the amount of goods and services that are available that have been produced and exist in our economy. Mm-hmm. Because that money supply and the amount of goods and services are so close now, you have less input for inflation. You need more money to have more inflation. If you have less money in relation to the goods and services that are available in your society, you'll have less inflation. You might even have disinflation. Mm-hmm. That's what's going on right now. So what they're finding out from this article, again, this is written by Steve Goldstein, writing on behalf of MarketWatch. What they're finding out is that the what they call the M2 or money supply measure of money that tells you the direction of inflation says that the consumer price index indicates that the America is on its way to zero inflation. That over the next 6 to 9 months, inflation will be down to zero.
Wow.
And maybe a few months after that, we may even have disinflation.
It's another Biden accomplishment.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Now some people don't see that as an accomplishment.
Right.
Some people think that, well, if we have more inflation, then we can raise prices,
right,
and we can raise wages, although they never do that, but we can raise our wages, and they think that that's a good thing. Other people feel like, well, if we have disinflation, then I don't need as much money for me to buy the goods and services that are available in my society.
Right. Yeah.
Right? That's what we think about it, right?
Mr. Here, I feel overall the economy for everybody is improving, not only the middle class, but everybody. And I see more people working. Matter of fact, even me and Norm is making plans for vacation now when we didn't have the money or to do that. So, and other people making plans. So
there's no question that things are better now than they were. Remember the question they used to ask as the litmus test? Are you feeling better now than you were before? You know, and so on, right? They use that because if there was anything that was negative in the society, they would always blame that on you, right? So if you're the incumbent, you know, and there was inflation or there was high unemployment or there was, you know, some balance of trade issue going on, they would blame that on you. You know, are things better for you now than they were before? Well, ask yourself today, for all of you that keep whining about Joe Biden is old, yeah, he's old, but maybe we need an old guy.
Right. Somebody who's going to care about everybody.
We had younger guys in play,
right,
and they almost destroyed the country. They still got a guy who's not even younger. He's 77. And he promised to destroy the country. He says, vote for me, and I will make you unfree. Okay?
Vote for me, I'll make you unfree. Wow.
You know, I mean, this is just insane.
Not only that, to the point that even maybe some lower class been talking to them, they're doing upgrades on their homes. So the conversation lets me know people are doing better. They got money to get stuff done.
You know, just let me throw a shameless shout out. Yesterday was my wife's and mine anniversary, so we went out.
Congratulations!
We celebrated a lot of anniversaries. This was the anniversary of the day we met.
You see how they do that, Willie?
This is funny.
Tuesday happened last week. That's an anniversary, right?
It's kind of funny. But anyway, we were out and we were just looking for hotel rooms. And we were going around all over. Mr. Hare, everything is sold out. Yep. Everything. Yep. And we were trying to figure out why. You know what I mean? But maybe this is part of the.
People got money.
People are moving now.
People are spending.
They were contracted in their lives for 2.5, 3 years because of that virus, right? And now that the virus, even though the virus is starting to creep up a little bit now, people aren't dying from it.
Yeah, people still get it.
So they're not afraid of it anymore, right?
Right.
And so people are traveling around the world again, and they're all over the country. I mean, Walt Disney, they was talking about they were going to lose money because of Ron DeSantis. They're not losing money. They're making more money, right? So I just wanted to get that thought out there for us to understand that money supply suggests significantly that we are on a track where over the next 6 to 9 months, we're going to be down to zero inflation. Not the 2% inflation that Jerome Powell said was the target. I guarantee you, write this down.
Write it down.
That 6 to 9 months from now, Jerome Powell is going to have his mouth poked out saying, inflation is down to only 0.5%. We need inflation to go up to 2%, right? In other words, they'll be complaining because
it's too low.
We didn't have enough inflation going on, right?
I guarantee
that
pen, Willie.
Right, that Jerome Powell. He's the chair of the Federal Reserve. He's the one that sets the policy for interest rates. For the Federal Open Market Committee that sets the interest rates that are charged by the biggest banks, in the country that other banks borrow their money from, and that's what the underlying input into what drives inflation. If the amount of money that's being made available by the Federal Reserve, if that amount of money is increased, then you're going to have more inflation because there's going to be more money chasing the same number of goods and services. If that amount of money decreases, then you're going to have less inflation chasing those goods and services. So that's an important thing for us to understand. Of course, the new scam now, there's a scam every day goes on in the United States right now, right? The scam today is we're going to impeach Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Now, impeachment used to be, I know that a lot of you all think that you're Americans, but you have to actually understand what it means to be an American citizen, to be a real American. You can't just be an American. You have to know what it is to be an American. We have laws in this country, we have a constitution in this country. We have a history that has a theory of the case of how we operate as a society in this country. And if you don't do that, then you're in a position to be manipulated by other people who are basically throwing nonsense at you and getting you motivated to behave in ways that are actually against your own self-interest. Anybody, for example, that tells you that losing rights is good for you is your enemy. Wow. That's your enemy.
Yeah.
You should vote these people to have their citizenship revoked.
Yeah.
That's going too far, but you should resist that. Right? Yeah. Anybody who's trying to take your actual rights over you, away from you, you should resist that person. Yeah. Okay. So in this article written by Lisa Mascaro for the Associated Press, Trump and his fan base are committed to the idea of impeaching Joe Biden. Now, Trump wants to do it because Trump's position is, well, you impeached me twice, and I didn't do anything. I just made a perfect phone call to Zelensky in Ukraine. All I asked him was, listen, Playboy, if you go out there and find me some dirt that we can put on Joe Biden, then I'll give you $600 million worth of guns and weapons and tanks that you can use to defend yourself from the Russians. How about that, Ukrainians? Now, you know that that's illegal, right? I mean, you don't have to be smart to know that. You just know that that's illegal. You can't do that. But that's what Donald Trump did. Now, being impeached for doing something that is illegal, you're supposed to get impeached when you're doing stuff that's illegal. You're the president of the United States. You don't get to do illegal stuff. Am I making sense?
Making sense.
If you're the president of the United States, you don't get to do illegal things.
Right.
But everything has rolled right off of him, no, Mr. Hare, which is the hardest thing for me to understand. I mean, even with all the, he's got 37 counts against him now,
right?
And he's still
he got 4 more that came yesterday,
and will be running for president
at 6 o'clock at night. I mean, they're working overtime to put these indictments on this guy, right? But my point is that he's complaining that he's been impeached twice, and he thinks he's been impeached illegitimately. Now, you get impeached because people found you in bed with the Russians and acting as if you were an agent for the Russians rather than an agent for the United States. Why would you keep a person as your president who is acting as an agent for another country rather than acting as an agent for you in the United States?
Crazy.
That's why he was impeached the first time. His second impeachment was because he was basically hustling people. I mean, you're taking the power of the United States and you're bribing somebody and extorting somebody. Bribing in the sense that you're going to give almost $1 billion of American money to this president of this country to help him fight whatever his battles is he wants to fight. He has to fight against people in his part of the world. In return, you're extorting the guy, saying, and extortion means you're taking something from somebody. You're extorting the guy, saying that I'm not going to give you this money unless you give me some dirt on Joe Biden. You're the president of the United States. You don't get to do that, even if that's in your spirit, even if that's something that you have in your dreams when you're in bed at night. You don't get to do that because you're the president of the United States. You can't do that.
Mr. Hare, I need to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
This one is something that's miffed in me because, for a while, but Mr. Trump has been impeached twice. And with his impeachment, one time he was in office. Well, both times he was in office.
Right.
Okay, so with that being said, the impeachment I know about is when Nixon got impeached.
Right.
Okay, he got impeached and he was removed from office. What is it?
No, he resigned from office.
He resigned.
Right.
Okay. So with his resignation, he still could have stayed on after Watergate.
He had enough integrity as a person to accept that he was an American.
I got
and
you.
As an American president, he could not make himself soil the American presidency by trying to stay in the job when they found him aiding and abetting burglaries.
Yes.
Erasing, records, 18 minutes, on a tape, all this stuff, that was going on with him. He at least had enough integrity as a human being to say, I got to step aside.
Yeah,
I got you.
I can't soil the American presidency by staying in office.
Now I have an understanding. I was just kind of like wondering, and we keep saying he's been impeached, but I'm understanding why and where the difference is.
Now, Donald Trump, He's so soiled that you can't find a clean spot on him. You remember in the Peanuts cartoon, there was a guy named Pigpen?
Pigpen.
And he's just dirty.
Always dusty.
Always dirty, right? He got dirt flying around his head and whatnot,
Yes,
right?
sir.
No flies and everything.
And flies and whatnot. That's Donald Trump, right? You know, he's like Pigpen. You know,
Yeah, but like Donald Trump, they get used to it and they're like, that's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, well, they got Marjorie Taylor Greene. She brings. Never mind. See, you get me saying stuff. So Ron DeSantis says, yes, it's absolutely within the Republicans' right. They should impeach Donald Trump. Nikki Haley, I know y'all said she's cute and she should be the president. You got that fascination stuff going on. With Nikki Haley, she says, yes, the Republicans would be justified to do it. I just want you to understand what impeachment means. I'm going to read it to you. The basis for voting such articles as articles of impeachment are set by the Constitution. Impeachment is supposed to be for, quote, treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors.
He meets
Has Nikki Haley articulated any treason, bribery, high crimes, or misdemeanors that she can say that Joe Biden has done? No. Has Ron DeSantis articulated that? No. Has Kevin McCarthy articulated that? No. Has Marjorie Taylor Greene articulated that? No. All they have is, well, you impeached Donald Trump twice, so we're going to impeach you. We'll teach you. We'll impeach you. Here's the problem. You are taking impeachment out of the realm of something that is being used to preserve our democracy by people feeling that, man, if I do wrong, they're going to impeach me. This would be terrible for me. Now what you're doing is you're turning impeachment into a political strategy. You impeach me, so I'm going to impeach you, right? And it becomes a tit for tat kind of a thing. That is stupid. You're actually injuring the United States, by doing that. I know that we're near the end of the hour and whatnot, right? You can't get to all of this stuff that you want to get to in this hour. I think I had another piece. Mitch McConnell. And let's give some love to Mitch McConnell and his best wishes for him. He was actually trying to deliver some remarks at the press conference, and he stopped in the middle of delivering the remarks and just froze. He couldn't say any words. He couldn't move. He couldn't do anything. His eyes didn't even move.
Oh, they said, yeah, I heard about that. They said
he looked like he turned into a statue.
Well, somebody said he might have had a stroke or.
He didn't have a heart or a stroke. It's just sometimes especially when you're older, you can reach a point where stuff just kind of turns off, and then it turns back on again, right? So they had to walk him away. He came back about 5 minutes later, and he delivered the rest of his remarks.
He finished.
So it wasn't like he just was off the planet. But this happens to you sometimes when you get older.
What
right?
It's a little bit more than a senior moment.
Right, exactly. It was a double moment, right? So, but he said on Wednesday that he understands House Republicans may be incentivized to do this impeachment stuff. He says, but he warned fellow Republicans, this is what I want to just mention about him. He warned fellow Republicans about continuing down this path. He said impeachment ought to be rare rather than common. He said, I think it's not good for the country when we have repeated impeachment, when we're using impeachment as a political strategy rather than for high crimes and misdemeanors. Listen, we're at the end of our hour. I want to get Talia Rodriguez on. She can talk to us about Let's Talk Business. I think that's how you let me read it to you.
Talia, let's talk. Talia, talk.
With the wristband she gave me says, let's talk business.
That's good. That's good.
So I'm going to call it Yo Hablo de Negocios. I'm hoping I said that right. Okay. We'll see you. Let's get Talia on. We'll talk in a bit. Bye-bye.
shadow. How could I sink this low? Our acquaintance